everyone, this is going to be a straightforward tutorial of how to play Rice Dice. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because we kickstarted Rice Dice, a Spirits of the Rice Paddy Dice Game, and then we didn't know how to play it. One of the biggest concerns we had was the lack of clarity and organization in the rule book. Almost everyone on the internet who's done a review or attempted a walkthrough of this game has stated that the rules are very confusing. They are. Guess what? Forget about it. You don't need the rules because I am going to teach you how to play Rice Dice. This game plays 1 to 5. So if you are not playing by yourself, get rid of that solo card and put aside the achievements and the events for now. Those are for an advanced game. To get set up for the game, all you're going to need to do is grab these starting paddies. There are 5. You're going to shuffle them and deal 1 to each player at the table. You're then going to look at the amount of water that you see in the top corner. In this case, each of us has a 1. You're going to then separate 1 for each of those paddies into the available water pool. Now, the amount of water that's available for the entire game is listed by player number, and I'm going to put that right here on the screen so you don't even have to look in the rule book for it. For 1 and 2 players, it's going to be 10. For 3 and 4 players, it's 15. And for 5 players, it's 20. Now, these are not available right now, but they will become available as players continue to add to their rice paddies and looking up in the top corner for how many numbers inside of that blue circle, you will add those to the available supply. The other thing, make sure that your player tokens are on the track. The person who reaches or surpasses 100 points wins the game immediately. Also make available the weed tokens and the planted tokens so that everybody can reach them. There are 5 dice. Put those in the center of the board, and then you're going to shuffle the deck of paddies. The last thing we need to do to get this game ready to go is make sure that we follow the instructions on our starting paddy. It says that it starts planted and with no water. So we are going to take one of these planted tokens and we're going to set it right there on top of our paddy. Now it looks like you're going to need 3 of these because there are 3 spaces on every starting paddy. Don't be misled. When you plant a paddy, you just put 1 of these to show the entire thing was planted, which means that you cannot plant a paddy in stages. You can't do 1 in one turn and then 2 later on. You have to be able to plant all of the paddy or none of the paddy. On a player's turn, what they'll do is they will take the dice, they will roll them, and if they want to, they can re-roll any or all of the dice. Now, once that re-roll has happened, or if they choose not to re-roll, if there are any weeds showing, they will take the amount of weeds that are showing and they will place them into their existing paddies. Paddies can take 1 or 2 weeds. After they have 2 weeds, you can't put any more weeds on that paddy. And if your whole paddies, all of them, are filled with weeds and you roll weeds, you just don't place them. I'll tell you in just a little bit how weeds affect your victory points once you harvest paddies. You're then going to select an action. Now, sometimes you're able to take actions that you don't see on the dice because your cards are going to allow you to do bonus actions. So let's say I have this showing. I have rolled 3 cards, symbols, and 2 weeds. Right now, I've got 1 paddy, so I'm going to place 2 weeds on my starting paddy. I can't have any more, so if I roll more weeds on my next turn, I can't place any more on that particular card. But what I do get is the card action. So I'm going to look at how many symbols I have there. That's 3. I will draw 3 cards, and then I can select one of these cards. Now, I don't have to. If I don't like any of them, I can discard all of them. But this is a way to grow your paddies and give you more options and give you more special abilities. A player can have only 4 paddies in their area at any given time. You can also replace paddies. And you don't have to be at your max 4 to replace a paddy. You can replace one right now. If I don't want this starting paddy anymore, I can take it and then replace it with one of my selected cards. The other rule with placing cards is that you have to place them to the left or to the right of all of your existing cards. So if I have this card built next to my paddy and then I want to do the card action again and build another card, I cannot squeeze this card in. I must place to the right or to the left of my existing paddy stream, because these are going to trickle down all of the water supply to lower paddies going to the right. So I look at these cards, there are a couple things to consider. The first thing is, in the top right corner, you have victory points in the fronds. So cards are going to be a varying amount of victory points. The other thing to keep in mind is that's not necessarily the victory points that you will earn. You have the possibility of earning fewer victory points based on how many weeds are in your card. Now, the top number, if you have no weeds on your card when you harvest, you get the top victory points. If you have one weed, it's going to be less. And if you have two weeds, it's going to be the smallest amount at the bottom of that top left corner. If you look in the top right corner, you'll see that there's a blue circle with a number in it. That's how much water you will be able to transport to the usable water source. And that is how much water everybody at the table has access to at any given time. In the center, you'll see how many hexes it takes to plant in that particular paddy. It might be as low as 1 or as high as 5. You'll also see that there might be a magic water source. It's explained on the card, but a magic water source means that it doesn't need any water for it to be planted. The last thing you're going to see is that there's a description in the bottom that gives you a special ability. Each one of those is pretty self-explanatory. They might give you extra bonuses on your rolls. They might negate weeds. They might do things on your opponent's turn. It's really cool. You have to take into consideration all of those factors when you select one of your paddies. So once you select a paddy, you place it to the right or left of your existing row of paddies, and then you discard the rest. That's my turn. I drafted my cards based on the amount that I could on the dice. I took the weeds on my paddy, and now it's the other player's turn. What do some of those other things do, though? There are question marks. Question marks can be anything other than weeds or the two worker symbol. So what that means is a question mark can be a single worker, it can be a water symbol, or it can be a card symbol. The water symbol, what does that do? So the water symbol lets you water your paddies. You can only use the existing water source, but what's going to happen first is I take the water action on my turn. Everybody at the table has the option of letting their water trickle down. What that means is they take their water, if there's water in front of one of the paddies, that, of course, much like planting, needs to fill every single hex. You can't just partially water a paddy, you have to fully water a paddy. You will let your water go down, and it goes down in left to right direction, and that's why it really depends, it matters where you put your paddies above and below so that you can actually catch the water and be really efficient, because water is going to be scarce, and you might have the chance to hoard the water. You might have the chance to, keep it to yourself and prevent your opponent from being able to get access to water. All right, fast forward to later in the game so I can give you an example of what it looks like to let the water flow. It is yellow player's turn. They're choosing the water action, but before they water with the available water tokens, they let everyone at the table have the option of letting water. Well, Peach player decided last turn that they wanted to plant in their watered paddy. Peach player wants to let the water flow. They will move the water to the right And if there is enough water to fill the entire grouping of the hexes on that patty, they stay. And then the next water will flow down. 1 is not enough to fill 5. 1 is not enough to fill 2, which means that this is going to deposit back into the reservoir. Yellow is now going to take their water action, and it appears that they only have 2 water to work with. However, if you look closer at their cards, you'll see that Water Blessing adds 2 extra water to your final roll result. And Lush Paddies say that your patties require 1 fewer water to be filled. So in Yellow's case, they get 2 extra water, so they actually have 4, and it requires 1 fewer to water the hex. So in this case, they'll take 4 water, and they will put them right there in front of Worker Blessing, or they can take 3 of them to place in front of the Water Blessing because it's a 4 hex. They can then place any one of these here. I'm going to allow everyone the chance to let water. In the beginning of the game, we don't have water on the board. So I've got 2 water available to me because there are 2 blue numbers in the circles. For us right now, there's still potential water, but it's not available to us. That's exactly what I need to water my planting mimic. So I take the water and I place the 2 in front of it because there are 2 hexes. And now that is watered. Why do I care about watering? Because when you roll the worker symbol, you've got a couple of choices. But the big choice that you want to make when you have water available to you in front of a patty is to plant. Now you have to have water with your patty to plant it. And what that means is you again count how many hexes you have. So right now I've got several workers available to me, and workers are pretty versatile. There are 3 things you can do with them. And of course that first one is planting, which I am going to do. I will take 2 of my workers and I will plant in this patty. I have 2 water, it's watered, I'm fine. I take 1 of those plant tokens and I place it on my 2 hex, and now I am planted. Now the trick is that you can't harvest a patty if there's water in front of it. Another thing that you can do on your turn is harvest. Now I have a patty that started planted because that was my starting patty, and I have 3 workers left available to me, 1 2 worker die and then a single worker die. I need 3 because my hexes on that starting patty totals 3. I take my plant token off and I look at how many weeds I have on my card. And in this case, I have 2 weeds. So I will be earning 2 victory points. If I had only 1 weed on my card, I would get 4 victory points when I harvested. And if I had none, I would be getting 10 victory points. So instead of harvesting, what if I spent my 2 workers to take 1 and 1 weed off? Now I have a worker left that I can't do anything with, but at least next turn, as long as I don't get those weeds, I can harvest this and get 10 points instead of 2 points. That's where the choice comes in. You might actually really need to just harvest, get it done with. You might need to move water. You might need to do all sorts of things on your turn. You only get to do 1 of the actions, but notice that you can do 3 things with those workers. You can plant in watered patties, you can remove weeds 1 for 1, or you can harvest. Now harvesting again, you can't have any water there, so that forces you to move that water down, hopefully to patties that need it. That's what the worker does. So now that we know what all the dice mean, it's just time for us to play. And you go back and forth, player by player, in this case 2, but you would go clockwise if you had more players. Rolling the dice, you roll once, and then if you want to re-roll any or all of the dice, you re-roll those. And again, if you have any of those weeds showing, you will add weeds to any of your patties. You can divide them up, you can add them all to 1 patty. If you have 2 on 1, you can't add any more, so don't add any more. And then you'll take your 1 action, whichever one you'd like. So sometimes you're not going to use a die because it's not showing the action that you selected. Remember, you can only have 4 cards in your paddy area. And every time you add a paddy, make sure you adjust for the water, taking it from that unused area to the available pool. At any given time, you can always count how many water are available. 1, 0, 1 equals 2, plus 2 is 4, plus 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7, and another 0. There are 4 and there's 3. We have 7 water in play. Once a player has cleared one of their paddies, let's say I harvested that last turn, and now I am ready to go, you can just do it again. You can keep on planting and harvesting your paddies to give victory points, and you just keep on working your way up to 100. And again, that first player to reach 100 or go past, they win the game immediately.